As the adage goes, explaining a joke is kind of like dissecting a frog. Sure, you'd understand more about it, but it's now dead. Now if you've watched Gintama, it can get pretty overwhelming getting bombarded by all the references the show throws at you. Even more so if you don't have the proper context to begin with. So let me try to help parse the jokes which you might have missed. In this series, I'll be attempting to provide the context for all of Gintama's jokes and references, which I'll go over one by one in chronological order. Think of this as a glorified translator's note coming from a guy who doesn't even speak Japanese. So, picking up where we last left off is episode 19. This is another possible banter with Onishi. The act of searching the bottom of vending machines in hopes to find loose change is a stereotype for homeless people in Japan. Apparently, in real life, this is also quite dangerous, as there have been some reports of people being killed by a vending machine that tipped over because someone tried to reach too hard. Umaibo is a puffed Japanese snack. It's basically one giant Cheeto coated with a different added flavoring. It's notable for being cheap, which Kagura uses to contextualize how much 300 yen is, though I highly doubt that the number here makes sense. The sound here is the sound of a cicada. It's essentially synonymous to summertime because cicadas are only active during that time of the month, I mean year. This scene is another reference to Ashita no Joe. It's parodying the scene when Rikishi was undergoing his extreme weight loss training by depriving himself of water so that he can be in the same weight class as Joe in order to fight him. This is a reference to Jesus Christ. In the Bible, Jesus is portrayed to have paid for the sins of man by being publicly crucified. I'm not sure if this is a reference to any particular show, but anything that involves big monsters is, in my books at least, a kaiju reference. Just like how anything that involves a shark fin is a reference to Jaws. I think double punch is synonymous to a double whammy, but don't quote me on that. This is another reference to the Bible, specifically the Book of Jonah. In the Bible, Jonah was swallowed by Dag Gadol, which is a large sea creature. But it later turns out that the large sea creature effectively saved Jonah from drowning. This is a parody of how anime puts out a teaser for the next episode at the end of their runtime. Otaku is a Japanese word that refers to someone who has immersed themselves deeply into a particular hobby. While it's often used in the context of anime and manga, the term otaku itself is actually a bit more broad and also encompasses other hobbies such as idols, Greek mythology, or in this case, yurei, which are basically Japanese ghosts. Now, regardless of the exact hobby itself, the word otaku is often used as pejorative, as it also carries the implication of forfeiting one's social skill in order to further pursue their respective hobbies. Hence why Gintoki and Sogo are giving Hijikata a hard time here.
痛いよお母さんここに頭怪我した人がいるよ痛いよお父さん絆創膏持ってきてできるだけ大きな人一人包み込めるくらいのおめえら打ち合わせでもしたのかああおらな幽霊なんて非科学的なもんは信じねえムー大陸はあると信じてるかな
Lost Continent of Mu is an alternative version of the lost city of Atlantis. Atlantis is a fictional hidden island that's mentioned in Plato's Timaeus and Critias.
あれ痛くないかもあやっぱ痛い銀さん今のカッパじゃありませんでした
Kappa is basically a turtle man-thing yokai that's found in Japanese folktales.
銀さんやっぱエアコン買いましょうよ今年の猛暑は扇風機だけじゃ乗り切れませんってこれ
Senpuki is literally just an electric fan.
扇風機を俺の番だ
This is an homage to the Rider Kick from the Kamen Rider series.
それは天才からくり技師ジェットクが作り上げた人造金貨製造機3号つまり偽の銭を思い通りに作り出して組織が潤っちゃったからお前ら全員に俺っちから金一封を出しちゃうよなからくり略して扇風機
The joke here is that Senpuki is also an elaborate acronym for Nise no Zeni o Omoidori ni Sukareta.
紛らわしい名前つけやがっててめえらJARO に電話すんぞこの野郎
JARO stands for Japan Advertisement Review Organization and is basically the body that's responsible for filing registered trademarks and preventing trademark infringements. Infringement in this context refers to a scenario in which a competitor would just blatantly steal someone else's likeness to sell their own goods or services, despite not having any affiliation whatsoever.
茨城キャバクラ遊びもほどほどにな
Unfortunately, I don't know who Ibaraki is.
オタは群れよあやつめを殺す算段を整えたのはネズミヤ様
This Amanto's name is Nezumiya. Nezumi in Japanese means rat, which fits his whole motif. And I'd like to think that an anthropomorphized rat is an homage to Master Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise.
祇園僧者の鐘の声諸行無常の響きあり
The translation here referred to Gion Jinja as Gion Temple, but it's more commonly interpreted as Gion Shrine. Gion Shrine is the former name of the Yasaka Shrine, which is a Shinto shrine located in the Gion district of Kyoto, and is one of the most famous local landmarks there.
本当にここに居座る気みたいですねどうするんすか銀さん
本気になった女はこってり背脂豚骨ラーメンよりしつこいやろ
When preparing a ramen broth, one of the steps is to remove the scums and fats when the broth is simmering down. It's a tedious task because the fats and scums can be quite persistent. So Kagura's use of the phrase here is to highlight how persistent a woman can be, just like the fats in tonkotsu ramen.
屈辱だわかつては幕府の鬼輪番エリートのこの私がなんでこんな蔑みの言葉を
Oniwaban was a group of undercover ninja agents that directly served the shogun.
何ついてきてんだよっていうか何その格好
男の人は若妻が好きでしょ
確かにそれも若妻だけどそんな若妻好きなのマスオくんくらいだぞ
それ違う人よ
This is a parody of Sazai-san. Sazai-san is an anime that's notorious for its longevity. It's even longer than One Piece. Way longer than One Piece. Sazai-san first aired in 1969 and still airs new episodes as of today. In the anime, Sazae Masuo is the father of the household. Here, Gintoki exclaimed, "Beta," which means cliched, in reference to the Indiana Jones-esque booby traps when they were trying to sneak into enemy territory. One of the guards here is cosplaying as Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Another guard cosplays as a Zaku Mecha from Gundam. And there's also Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
大冒険の旅、そこには全てがある。あなたはかつて見たことのない大宇宙を目にすることになるだろう。
This space travel advertisement is a reference to Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
ケツ服髪は忘れたけど、もっと素敵な髪は手に入れたよ。空を飛べる髪ある。宇宙の旅3名様。ご上昇。
Here, Gintoki exclaimed, "Gojojo!" which, when literally translated, means factory manager. Usually, if you work for a company, they might offer a bonus in the form of a fully paid vacation. So, Gintoki is metaphorically referring to Kagura as the factory manager, as she was the one who essentially granted the Yorozuya a trip to space.
なんかズキズキするの。昨日飲みすぎた気に。
Here, we are introduced to Sakamoto Tatsuma, who is based on Sakamoto Ryoma. Sakamoto Ryoma was a highly influential figure during the Bakumatsu period. He was notable for essentially forming the Sacho Alliance, uniting the rivaling domains of Satsuma and Choshu in their quest to dethrone the Bakufu.
お客様の中で宇宙船の操縦のできる方はいらっしゃいませんか？ほんと誰でもいいから助けて。
This is a nod to the 1980 comedy movie Airplane.
By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane?
金時だろうがよ、金時。お前、もし俺が金時だったらタイトルラテ欄に載っけらんねえぞ、この野郎。
Kintoki is a pun of Gintoki's name. The Gin in Gintoki means silver, while Kin means gold. However, there's also a risque implication to this pun. If Gintoki's name was actually Kintoki, then the title of the series would therefore be Gintama, which can mean golden soul. Not too bad so far, but the Japanese word for soul is also a homonym for balls. So Gintama could also be interpreted as golden balls, which is a slang term for testicles. Speaking of testicles, this video is sponsored by yeah, I wish.
金さん、これっすよ、これ。
The technologically out-of-place helm in the spaceship is a reference to the Arcadia ship from Space Pirate Captain Harlock.
おう、素人がそんなもん触っちゃいかんぜよ。このパターンは3人でいがみ合ううちに火事がポッキリっちゅうパターンじゃ。それだけは阻止せねばいかん。うわっ。そういうパターンできたか。
Patan is a Wasei-eigo term, which are basically loan words that originated from English, in this case, from the word pattern. In this context, Patan refers to the comedy routines that stand-up comedians would recite. Pattern in the sense of the particular sequence of action when they practice their skits.
一面ババアの肌みたいな星に不時着しやがって。
This desert planet has two suns, so it's most likely a parody of the Tatooine planet from Star Wars.
ちょっとあっちの川で水飲んでくるね。
川ってどこ？その川渡ったらダメだよ。銀さん、やばいよ。カグラちゃん、サンズの川渡ろうとしてるよ。
The translation here adapted it to river Styx, but the original phrase that was said is Sanzu no Kawa, or the Sanzu River. Conceptually though, they are practically the same thing. In Greek mythology, Styx is a river that separates the earth, Gaia, and the underworld, Hades. So the phrase crossing the Styx River, or in this case, crossing the Sanzu River, is basically a euphemism for dying.
とっつぁん、もう勘弁してくれ。俺はボクシングなんてもうどうでもいいんだ。水が飲みてえんだよ。
うい、しっかりしろガクラ。
わかった、とっつぁん。やっぱ俺ボクシングやってみるよ。
According to the wiki, this is a reference to Rocky Balboa, but I haven't personally watched Rocky, so I can't comment on it much.
おりょうちゃんじゃ。結婚してくれよ。
In Gintama, Oryo is Sakamoto Tatsuma's favorite hostess, which was later revealed to be one of Otai's co-worker. In real life, Oryo is the name of Sakamoto Ryoma's wife.
すまんのムツ。こんなとこまで迎えに来てもらって。
こんなことは今回限りにしてもらおう。
Mutsu is based on Munemitsu Mutsu, a Japanese statesman slash diplomat who also had close ties with Sakamoto Ryoma. In real life, Mutsu at a glance resembles the Chad Voyak, which also reflects on Mutsu's Chad-like personality in the anime.
ふぐり腐らせて死ね。
ムツはハチキン焼きかなんの。
Hachikin refers to a strong independent woman from the Kochi area. This word became a thing in the first place because there's a stereotype that women from the Kochi area are all strong and independent. Munemitsu Mutsu, however, was born in the Ki province, so not exactly a Hachikin. This inconsistency is something that Sorachi addressed in one of the Q&A sections in the manga.
海援隊中でな、わしの施設艦隊みたいなもんじゃ。
Kaientai is based on the real-life Kaientai, which was a trading company founded in 1865 by Sakamoto Ryoma.
ほっとけほっとけ、幻覚じゃ。でもほっとけほっとけ、幻覚じゃ。坂本さん。
This sand-tentacled kaiju is a reference to Dune.
あ、ラテラン乗ってる。
Here, Gintoki is searching the newspaper to look up the schedule for upcoming TV programs, which, believe it or not, was a thing that people did back in the day. And the joke here is that Gintoki's presumably looking for Gintama, but the show listed is Gintama, which airs just before Bleach.
お前こないだ燃えるゴミにジャンプ出してたじゃねえか。
In Japan, jump magazines are considered to be disposable. People generally don't collect them and simply throw them out once they're done reading the contents, just like a newspaper. Exactly like a newspaper. Japan is also very particular with their classification of trash. Generally, they sort them out into four main categories, namely combustible, non-combustible, recyclable, and oversized. Since jump magazines are literally just a stack of papers, there's an argument to be made that it's combustible, which it is, but in Japan, paper goods are generally classified as recyclable, and thus should be disposed of along with the other recyclables instead.
何言ってんのよ。この気だるさが私の売りなのよ。アゴミ。
誰がアゴミだこら。
パーコ、さっき紹介しただろ。この人はアゴ用だ。
違うわ。安住だボケ。
This person's stage name is Azumi, and since Azumi's defining feature is their chin, Gintoki and Katsura surmised that their name must have incorporated it somehow. The Japanese word for chin is ago, which is how Gintoki and Katsura came up with Agomi and Agoyo as possible names.
何があったの？こんな大怪我して病院よ。早く病院に行かなきゃ。赤ひげよ、赤ひげ呼んで。
Dr. Redbeard is a reference to the 1965 movie Akahige by famous Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. Akahige literally translates to Redbeard.
容量えねえな。はっきり言えよ、はっきり。スポーツ狩りにするぞ。
Test of courage is basically a glorified term that boils down to a wiener measuring contest.
何をしてるんだ貴様は。いや、前にも後ろにも動かなくなっちゃった。パーコ。だからお前はパーコなんだ。なんだこの野郎。パーヤンだったらいいのかてめえ。
In the same vein as Agomi and Agoyo, Gintoki's stage name is Paako, because Pa in Japanese means perm, referring to Gintoki's shaggy hairstyle. And as far as I understand, Pa is also an onomatopoeia of smacking, like pa. So Gintoki's basically saying that he's going to smack Katsura here.
あのちどこぞであったかな。
やだキモい縄文式のナンパ
Jomon is the age of hunter-gatherers in Japan's history. So, Jomon pickup line figuratively means a really outdated pickup line.
あ、俺パス。4時からゲートボール大会あるから。
Gate ball is a team sport that was inspired by croquet. Your goal is to earn as many points as possible by either hitting the ball so that it passes through the gate or hits the goal pole.
ずらお前えらいことになってるぞ体どこやったお前も生首になってるぞ南無阿弥陀仏
Namu Amida Butsu is a mantra in Amidism. Amidism is a particular branch of Buddhism.
思い出したぞアマント襲来の折白粉一丁で敵の戦艦に乗り込み白いふんどしが敵の血で真っ赤に染まるまで暴れ回った伝説の男鬼神西郷徳盛
Tokumori Saigo is based on Takamori Saigo, who was one of the 3 great nobles of the Meiji Restoration. Now, just to clarify, as far as I know, the actual Takamori Saigo didn't fight in a battlefield with a mere loincloth on, but I'd love to believe otherwise.
みんな自分を蝶と言い張りますが、どっちかというと蛾です。
The background dancers here are dancing to the moves of Masara Blue Jeans by Cute. And folks, that's all for today. If I missed anything, comment down below so we all can see. And with that, thank you all for watching, and see you next time. And I'd like to think that an hell, this is a hard word to pronounce. And I'd like... my voice cracked!